Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple in Life, and welcome to another edition of Tool Time Tuesday. This week we're going to take a look at a rotary platen. So what is a rotary platen? Well, there's a lot of people that don't know. Myself, I didn't know what they were until several years ago. I've been doing a lot of research, and for over a year I've wanted a rotary platen, and I've looked at whether I should build one or buy one. I did end up buying one, and over this past weekend I made some tooling bars and I got it finally operating, and I've been testing it out. It's incredible. And I put a quick little video on my Instagram story yesterday, and I had a ton of messages. People are saying, what on earth is that thing? How do you use that? What's that for? So I thought, what a perfect opportunity to do a Tool Time Tuesday about a rotary platen. We're going to take a quick look at it and kind of show you how you'd use it, why you might want one, and just kind of clear the air. A lot of people don't know what it is. But before we get to that, let's take a look at some viewers' knives. The very first knife we're going to take a look at is sent to me from Marty, and he is from NY Mountain Knives. Actually, Marty lives very close to me, probably like within 45 minutes, maybe an hour from where I live. So that's really cool. And this very first knife he sent in, he made from an old lawnmower blade. I think it's a great looking knife. He put a really nice finish on that, and he put his maker's mark on there, which is really cool. He actually sent me an email without the pictures, so I emailed him asking where's the pictures, and he also sent me another picture of this knife that he made from a stainless steel scissors. Now, think about that for a minute. You take an old pair of stainless steel scissors and you repurpose it into a knife. And you know what? I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a neat shape. A lot of people get hung up on what a knife should look like. And if you just kind of give yourself a little creativity, especially when you're getting into knives, ultimately a knife is a sharp object that cuts, and it's a tool that you can use. Quite frankly, this knife made from scissors, that looks like a very usable tool. So I think that's a great looking knife. Marty, very well done. Also, Marty has a YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Next, we're going to a 15-year-old knife maker from South Africa. Galen, he's been making knives for several years, and he uses a lot of Damasteel Damascus, and I think these knives just look really, really excellent. I really like the look of these chef's knives, these kitchen knives that you're making, and also this one here, this hunter type knife, utilitarian blade. Really, really great work. I like that thumb recess there. It looks very comfortable, and I think these knives, the fit and the finish is very well done. So Galen, at 15 years old, keep up this excellent work. And the last knives we're going to take a look at are sent to me from a young man, Mark Tyler Knives, and I'll put a link to his YouTube channel as well as his Instagram in the description below. Incidentally, Mark actually met Doug with Off-Grid Doug and Stacy at a Mother Earth News Fair, and Doug tried calling me up with there. He's like, hey, I saw you on Jeremy's channel. And so anyways, he wanted to talk to me. Doug tried calling me. I was outside without my phone, didn't get a hold of him, but we did end up talking, and really, really great young man. And also, one of the really cool things about seeing young makers and new makers is when you see their several knives, like these 3 knives are ones that he had sent me. These were his first knives. And when you look at his Instagram feed now, it's incredible how much better and how much progress you can see in this short time. So Mark Tyler, thank you so much for sending these in. Very nicely done. Keep up the great work, and it is really cool to watch you develop and grow as a knife maker. Okay, onto the rotary platen. Let's head over to the belt grinder and I'll show you what it is. All right, so this is a rotary platen, and it is a very odd looking attachment. I will say that for sure. And kind of when you just look at it, you're kind of like, what's going on? I remember the very first time I ever saw one of these, I thought somehow it was like a serpentine drive or something. I thought, where are they routing that belt through and why? Nothing like that is happening, and it's actually got its own independent belt, so you take off whatever abrasive belt you're using, and you still have this backer belt. Now, the main reason you'd want one of these is when you're doing knives that have a convex grind. So, for instance, you have your flat grind where you're using a flat platen or something like that. You're putting a bevel that's shaped like this. Using a contact wheel to get a hollow grind will give you a concave edge like this, a concave bevel. And then what this allows you to do is when you're doing a slack belt, it's actually going to grind your material convexed. So it's not flat, it's not concave, it's convexed. Now, one of the major manufacturers of Bark River knives, this is actually a Bark River knife right here, and they do pretty much exclusively, from what I understand, convex grinds. The reason for that is they say there's a lot more support for the carbides when they come to the edge, and when you think about the theory behind it, it definitely does make sense. Now, I've tried doing convex grinds by simply removing the flat platen from my platen and just using it between the 2 wheels. The issue with that is that even when you really crank your belt down super, super tight, there's too much give in the belt that you can't, unless you just were satisfied with incredibly light pressure and took forever to get your grinds in. But if you want something where you can actually give a little pressure and actually be somewhat speedy or efficient in grinding that bevel, it typically doesn't work all that great. Having said that, you know what? I have done a few blades, nothing that ever went to customers, just like R&D stuff that I was messing around with, just using my flat platen with the actual platen itself removed. So I'm gonna bring the camera in a little closer and we'll take a look at some of the specifics behind one of these. All right, so again, this is the model that's made by KMG, and essentially it's 4 wheels, and these are actually a splined belt. So they've got the ribs in there, you know, like a serpentine belt that you'd find on your car. And basically these wheels have these same grooves machined in them so that the tracking of your drive belt isn't affected in any way, shape, or form by this belt. Now, you'll notice there's 4 different wheels and they're all spaced differently. The reason for that is that you can use different amounts of pressure based on the distances. As well, this is adjustable. This wheel right here will actually go in and out. It will come to the point where it's entirely loose, so you can change the belts out and you can actually really jack this sucker like banjo tight, depending on the application and how much give you want when you're grinding. Now, when you think about the distance between these wheels, obviously for different applications and purposes, they're going to have different uses. Recently, I was grinding a chef's knife or a barbecue meat slicing knife, and I really like this portion right here. I find that, you know, obviously you can adjust the belt tension, but this is just the right amount of give that I still have a very controllable bevel. Let me grab that knife just one sec. All right, so this is the knife I was grinding yesterday, and this is a meat slicing barbecue knife. This one's for me. And essentially, when I was working on this yesterday, I was grinding right at this portion of the belt here. And with this tension that I have set up on here, it's really nice because you see there's still some give there. Like that still moves a little bit, and you still get that convex grind, that curvature on the bevel, but it's still very controllable. So every tiny little input translates to the grind itself. Rather than, you know, if you're just using a belt between your Platen wheels, you know, you can kind of go like this and it's really not going to do a whole lot because you can't get a lot of pressure on it. Now, obviously these different distances between these wheels, this distance here and this difference here does vary slightly, although it's very little. Obviously this is about a medium and then this is really tight. One thing I'd probably use this distance here for is for sharpening. And I'll show you the tooling arm I made for this. Essentially it's just a little shaft that goes through, and I just drilled a 3/4 hole and tapped it, and then you kind of lock it, and then you can kind of rotate this around to use any portion of these belts that you would like. So, you know, if you're doing, say, handle shaping, you could loosen this off, use a lot of slack in here, and then like I said, if you're sharpening a knife, you can stick this part in here, crank it up, and now you've got very little give, but at the same time you still are putting a convex edge in there. So if you're going to be using this to sharpen blades, which it works really well for, I've sharpened a couple with it, absolutely love it. And so that's kind of the idea behind these things. So here's the tooling arm I made. Again, this is just the 1.5" bar that works with the KMG grinders, and all I did was I drilled a 3/4 inch hole through here. The shaft that comes on these is a 3/4 inch, and then I drilled and tapped a 3/8 hole, obviously tapped the bottom, drilled out the top, and I just cut this slot in here with a grinding disc. And then all I'll have to do is just loosen it off a bit, and I can adjust it as well, take it out. So that is essentially your rotary platen. And it just pops in there like this. Again, this could be modified to suit all different types of grinders. And just pick which side you want to work on. 1, 2, crankaroo. Boom, you're good to go. So to adjust the tension on this rotary platen, we've got this bolt right here, and that's what locks this wheel. This is your adjustable wheel. All you do is take your wrench. A lot of guys will actually put a quick release lever like these onto their rotary platen. I think I might actually do that. Whoops. I need to tighten this thing up first. So all you do is you come in here, loosen off this bolt, and then there is the rod, the shaft that this wheel is on is threaded. So you can just use your Phillips screwdriver here and loosen it or tighten it as you wish. And again, it loosens off incredibly loose there. You can change these belts, do whatever you need to do, and then you can get this sucker cranking tight depending on how you'd like to use it. My thoughts are, when I'm using this, I'm going to pretty much find a tension that I'm happy with and keep it as close to that as possible. That way I can just get more repeatable results. I mean, unless you've got a belt tension gauge, I mean, who has those tools anyways? Kind of hard to reproduce the exact same tension every single time. So if you're changing it all the time and you're, you know, going from one knife to another, you may notice that it's a little bit unpredictable. So that's kind of my thoughts are, what I'm gonna try to do is keep it as close as possible. What I guess you could also do is make some type of markings on here and then, you know, maybe line them up, maybe scratch some lines in there once you have the ideal tension, and that should actually get you fairly close as well. All right, guys, well, there's a really quick look at a rotary platen. Hopefully this kind of sheds some light on this weird little attachment for you. Maybe you've seen these things before and you're like, what on earth is that? Why would you use that? That's kind of the gist of it. One thing I never mentioned that this is actually really handy for as well is that if you loosen these belts off a bit, it's really good for shaping handles, especially for like axes or something like that, and also knife handles as well. You can loosen off quite a bit so you get a little bit of give in there, and it just, rather than working against a hard piece of steel or glass like on our flat platen or a contact wheel, it just has some forgiveness and some give there. And again, for sharpening, this thing works really slick. One person you may have seen using these before is Liam Hoffman on Instagram. I'm sure you've heard of him. He uses rotary platens a lot. He uses them a lot for sharpening his axes, and they're just a really handy tool, especially when you want to get into convex grinds. And I'm going to be doing a lot of convex grinds with kitchen knives and stuff. Based on just some of the really quick feedback I've had on Instagram, a lot of people are telling me that once they switch to convex grinds, they will never go back to a flat grind. So I'm interested to play around with it and kind of see what we get. But even on something like this barbecue chef's knife, I mean, with this rotary platen and with the belt really nice and tight, you can't really tell by looking at it that it's a convex grind. It looks kind of like a flat grind. It's just when you get a little bit closer and kind of pay a little more attention to the detail, you can see that indeed this thing does have some curves to it. I mean, it's not even really going to show up on camera, I'm quite certain. But that is indeed a convex grind. It's kind of cool. One advantage a lot of people I'm hearing are telling me is that it has really good food release with a convex grind. You know, if you're cutting up vegetables, cucumbers, something like that, if you've got a really flat, really smooth surface, those vegetables are going to be stuck to that. And they say the convex grinds really help that, and they just kind of better for food release in kitchen knife applications. So anyways, I'm just going to play with this thing for a while, and like I said, you'll probably be seeing this a lot more in future build videos, and maybe we'll come revisit this after a while once I kind of know it a little bit better and show you a little bit more details how you could use this thing. But I just wanted to get this up there for you guys to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I thank you so much for watching. Cheers.
Daddy, lunch is ready.
Okay.